The Conservation Forestry Committee meeting. Today is April 11th, 2023. We will start by reviewing the minutes of the 2/13/2023 meeting.
It was a very short and sweet meeting, so.
Do you want to add who was here?
Yeah, that, I didn't write everybody down.
Do that only because
It was us four here, yeah. And Dan Krampus, but because he spoke.
who was that again?
Dan Krampus. Is that how you say his last name, Jen?
Yes.
Yeah,
Krampus?
yeah.
Need a motion to accept the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
The amending is with the people?
Yep.
Gotcha. Second?
All in favor?
And thank you again, Kelly, for putting that together.
I'm gonna abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. Next on the agenda is update from Selectmen on Forester job description. I don't know if there's any new information.
I haven't had anybody get back to me, Andy, or anything. I didn't know if that meant, what was, the draft we were moving forward with was kind of what Mike had boilerplated from the meeting before. So you gave that to the selectmen? Is that where we are right now?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't heard anything back on it. I presume that would come back to you, but I don't know that.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is reviewing the draft mission statement. Which, this came from discussion from last month's meeting, and pretty much we plugged in our information to Freiberg's, mission statement per our discussion.
Well, part of that, I think, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, we started off with what was off of the website from Alfred before that, right?
Correct, yes.
And then we talked a little bit about that being, at least in part, I think it was regulatory, but that seemed like a reasonably good boilerplate as well. And then we kind of jumped over here to Freiberg too. So I did read over what we had, what you had put out in the, attachment on the email. And,
Is that that?
and that's that, right.
Just want to make sure I'm following the same thing.
I gave it, you should have a copy.
Draft mission statement, right. Let me make sure that I'm working on, for some reason I have a different font attached to it, hold on. Gotcha. So, this one was the one that was attached to the minutes today? I mean, this week?
Correct, I
The
actually,
one with the large font on it?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where this might have been more from the Alfred one, but I also went back today just a little bit before the meeting and kind of re-crunched some stuff that comes very close, I think, to what you had here as well. So let me just pass that out there too, and if whatever we had from the mission draft that Andy just put out, and then what I did was, so again, correct me if from where I am, but I'm trying to remember where this one came from, this one up here at the top. Because this one was called draft mission statement as well. Well, I don't know if it was a different version.
That was what we had just started with, just to get the
This was the
conversation
ori-
rolling.
Yeah, this was the conversation rolling, and then we recognized that this was way too wordy.
Gotcha,
Because we
okay,
talked about a mission statement, it really should be short and concise and to the point.
okay.
And then we can do our guidelines underneath it.
Okay, so consider what I have underneath of this first one that has my initials on the bottom, and what Andy has created as well. Again, I didn't go back to this one today, though, so if it's a combo or anything can be taken from either of those two or both of those two, let me go back and read Andy's. I apologize for the delay. Go for it.
And they both have the advisory component.
Yep, yep. So just, I didn't have this one that you just had in front, this larger fonted one in front of me. I just went from this longer version from the previous meeting to create what I had. So it's going to be very similar here to what Andy's was from this time. So
And
the
again-
both of them, I think, are pretty close to on point. If there's anything that can be taken from either or both of them, then yeah, and that's pretty close in my mind.
And like I said, pretty much this one, the one in large font is pretty much directly from Freiburg.
Freiburg, yep.
Yep. And we had, last meeting, we had written, protect and conserve public-owned properties while devising town boards and committees.
Gotcha. So that's kind of where I came in at this one. Now, whether that was just a latent remembering of what we had talked about at the
Yeah,
last
that's
meeting,
okay.
I can't say. So I kind of, one thing I would be concerned about on this, the large fonted one from Andy today is I would, again, in total, very good. I would worry about putting anything in there talking about improving public access right off the bat without knowing if that's a pro or a con for any particular property that we might come to have
Right.
oversight on. So I think, let me see, in public owned spaces.
Improve.
So I think other than that, they're very, very similar. What I wrote this evening to this one, so in my mind, any combination of the two of those, again, with it minus the access part, would be very close in my mind.
So, yeah, it said, restore, protect, and conserve, conserve public-owned properties.
Which one are you looking at now? Andy?
I'm just
Yep.
kind of at in Andy's, conserve public-owned properties, instead of saying, improve. The mission of the Acton Conservation Committee is to restore, protect, and conserve public-owned properties by working with town departments, boards, and committees.
And by enlisting volunteers committee.
Yeah, just getting rid of the,
Yeah, definitely, I would get rid of
Improve
the
public
improved
access.
public access.
Well,
Whether or not it's feasible or not, I don't know if the only thing that seems to be different between the two by note, certainly, this one here from the first week, I did take and leave, and I hate it when I say that. Mentioning specifically the Goat Hill, the Mary Grant, and Town Forest parcels is something that could certainly change through time, so that isn't anything that I necessarily deemed super important, other than as an illustration to say which type of properties that we're working on. We're not only an outreach type of thing, but the concept behind working within the comp plan, I think, might be important to some as well. That's definitely a group decision. It's nothing that I deem like, a concern of. If we had the conversation previously with Dave at the last meeting and he was worried about, for example, the concept of rogue, committees and things, then the idea behind it being within the comprehensive plan, I think, might not be a bad tag to add into it if it's not too wordy. But, that's definitely for the group to decide.
I apologize if I missed a lot of the conversation. I did miss a lot of the conversation if I'm going over things, but
Yeah.
I went through the comprehensive plan just before the meeting here, and I came up with all the things that they listed that the Conservation Committee and the Forestry Committee are
kind of charged with, yep,
And there's a bunch of stuff.
right.
But one of the big things that I see missing out of both is, if you look at the goal of the agriculture and forestry section of the plan, the goal is to protect the town's agriculture and forest resources from increasing suburbanization and maintain these resources as a source of rural economic opportunity. And I take that to mean that they want thoughtful, legal timber harvesting to occur.
Okay,
I don't see anything in here about that.
gotcha.
So, I think it's important that, the first statement is to restore, protect, improve public access, which, by the way, is part of the comprehensive plan that is looked at anyway. And so far as
Yep.
even buying waterfront property and using that to increase public access. So the last sentence, they work to create opportunities for all citizens to learn and enjoy natural resources and maintain these resources as a source of rural economic opportunity. I think that should go in there. We have a management plan for the town lot that we adopted. If this is going to be the Forestry Conservation Committee, then there ought to be some mention of that.
Is that within, in a boiled down version, the last sentence of what I had, or do you think it needs to be more explained toward what you said? I certainly didn't specify about like responsible timber harvesting or anything like that, and you think it needs to be more, plain than that?
I take rural economic opportunity as
Yep.
managed not only for everything else, but also for,
Yep.
if there's an opportunity to cut some wood to produce some revenue for the town, that's what we should do.
And I think rural economic opportunity falls within, I think I said this last time, a mission statement really only has to be short and sweet. And then, like, for example, Southern Maine Healthcare's mission statement is to be the leader in healthcare among our community members, right? That is our mission
yeah.
statement, short and sweet and to the point. And then underneath it, we have our goals, right? So our mission statement, we gotta be careful it doesn't get too wordy, right? Because then that we're held accountable for those words. So that's the only thing.
I think that's why I tried to just simply say responsible stewardship, but whether or not that's not specific enough is
I
certainly.
do like the rural economic, I think that kind of covers it all, but we have to really make sure it's,
I understand that,
petite.
Working at.
Yeah, you understand.
Different schools.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody, draws up a new mission statement.
Yeah.
It's just, squeeze and squeeze.
Well, the point I think is if we're at this point where those concepts are what we're latching onto, then the rest of it is just very specifically about what words we're putting in the
Right.
mission statement. Then we definitely don't have any discrepancy within our actual
No,
desire for what's in the mission statement. The only question is just simply what words are in it. Yeah,
Looking at this just real quick today, in light of what the comprehensive plan proposed, it kind of covers that.
Yeah.
Without going into, 1, 2,
3, 4.
47.
yeah.
But I think those words have to be in there somewhere. Because I think there'd be some people in town that would say, hey, here's 100 acres, why aren't we cutting wood on it? If
Or doing whatever with it. The concept is, right, yeah, it doesn't have to be that, it can be whatever, yeah. Yep,
So rural economic, what was your exact wording? Rural,
a source of rural economic opportunity.
that should be an easy fit somewhere.
Somewhere. Maybe the last sentence, and create opportunities for us and to develop or maintain these resources. The whole sentence is maintain these resources as a source of rural economic opportunity. So where it says enjoy natural resources
Okay,
and maintain these resources as a source of rural economic opportunity.
As a source of, say again, a source of what? Rural.
Rural
economic opportunity. Yeah, that works. But I would remove the improved public access. I would, just because improvement
Right,
makes that.
yeah, that's way too much of a blanket statement that may or may not apply to different
I would,
lots.
and conserve, public-owned spaces by working with town departments, boards, and committees.
I mean, the improvement of public access is just, it's one of those things, it's either a great thing or it's a bad thing.
Right.
Right.
One or the other, like Goat Hill, for example, they've worked very hard to.
With ADA improvement of access. right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Mary Grant's done the same thing, but that's all positive.
But yet, for example, if it's on the town forest and it's being taken to mean improve access for four-wheelers onto town forest land or something, then that is very much in the opposite direction.
Right.
So, but restore can kind of cover that, right? Restoring, so if we're making it ADA, we're restoring the trail to make it ADA able, or, you know. I
Well,
think
again, you're
we can use
well, if you
another
back
word.
up to the statement, restoring and protecting the publicly owned spaces, just not necessarily the access. Some of them might have to be restored or protected by
Yeah.
not improving upon the access points.
If you're restore and protect. So if there is public access, or not public access, but people are accessing it, and we have to restore the land because of that negative access, and then you can protect.
Right, right. Okay, maybe I see where you're headed. If I'm going off the rails, by all means, correct me. But if the restore, protect, to restore and protect Acton's publicly owned spaces, restore and protect. So the verb sort of becomes restore and protect without the in public. I'm getting into a grammar scenario here, that's all. I don't mean that to be off into the weeds, but you're restoring and protecting the publicly owned spaces.
If it's publicly owned, doesn't it automatically say public access?
Well, that's kind of where I'm getting at, is if we've taken the public access part out of it, is that statement going down kind of the wrong road? That's not, no pun intended, I did not mean that at all, I'm sorry.
Really, really good thought.
I don't know how that happens with me, I'm sorry.
The road less traveled even.
Well, let me back up a half a step and just say, what would happen if, and take it or leave it, but what would happen if the mission statement of the committee is to, and then we went with the first, I'm just using this as a boilerplate. If we moved over to my draft and said, in order to help promote the goals of conservation of natural resources and open space in our town. And then you can go back to the by working with town departments, boards, and committees. Because that's kind of working away from the idea that it's an access concern that we're specifically looking for. And it's just open to whatever type of natural resource concerns and conservations that we might have. Because I know Andy's talked about, like in the past, and we all have, about if this develops into something that we become a contact within the town to start pointing people in the right direction for, say, an easement or a clearinghouse for information on how do I get to do this with my land, or what would be a good method to do this, then that statement might actually work. So we're helping to promote the goals. Let's see. I don't know if restore might whether restore is, that might have judgment attached to it as well, I'm not sure. The protect part, in my mind, as a forester, wants to be more like conserve rather than protect. But restore definitely might point more toward like a, whatever it was automatically better than what it could be, so the word restore, I'm not sure that that word works for me.
Well,
But again, these are all just grammar scenarios.
Say there's a gravel pit that's used up.
Mm-hmm.
And they donate it to the town.
Right.
You know, then we would restore that to something that
Like a
would be
park
more
or,
than just a
yeah.
hole in the ground.
Well, it certainly could apply. All I'm saying is would this cover that? Because if you take out the commas and the extra parts about public access, that would read to restore and protect Acton's publicly owned spaces. So that certainly could happen, but whether or not one wants to say that restore is actually the goal of our mission statements.
Would you say conserve instead of restore?
That's what I'm getting at, yes. I would just rather use conserve than restore.
I just think conserve should be part of it, because we're the Forestry and
Right.
Conservation Committee,
And on
so.
that note, can we add after Acton Conservation and Forestry Committee?
Yes.
Right.
Restore,
So we're gonna give.
So that's why I was just looking at if
to
it,
conserve and protect.
well, again, that's why I'm saying if you took from my first sentence and went from either from before or after the word help, and then started with preserve goals of conservation of natural resources and open space, in the point of starting with restore, protect, and improve public access, could that be substituted in that spot?
Contributes to the conservation of Acton's natural resources, open space.
Hold on, you lost me.
I'm taking from your first sentence.
Yeah, like, start in with promote goals of conservation of natural resources is to, like, if you started is to, as opposed to restore and protect and improve public access, you put is to promote goals of conservation of natural resources and open space. Right.
The mission of the Acton Conservation and Forestry is to,
Is the conservation,
Promote goals of conservation.
goals of conservation.
I had of natural resources and open space, but that's certainly,
Acton,
Mains, natural resources, open space.
and then that would kick right back in with the word by, working with town departments or committees or however that would fit in there.
so instead of saying names.
Let's do Acton's.
We say Acton's?
Yeah,
Is,
Where is the word, where is Mains? Was that part of a,
that's right.
oh, the very first line at the top is to help in order to promote goals of conservation, natural resources and open spaces.
oh, up top, no, I was working within the section at the bottom that I had, and then this one with the large font, I'm sorry.
So what I have, the mission of the Acton Conservation and Forestry Committee is to promote goals of conservation of natural resources and open spaces, of Acton's natural resources and open spaces.
Well, I put in our town, and then you could jump in with by working with town departments.
Of natural resources and open spaces in our town.
In our town, and then jump back into Andy's draft with by working with town departments.
By working with town department boards and committees by listing volunteers. Yep.
Okay. By working with town. Now, the other thing that was mentioned extensively in the comprehensive plan was local land trust. Would that be under the term boards and committees? Or am I reading that as town departments, town boards, and town committees?
My gut on that one, as part of this first one that was on the top of the one that I had my addendum to on the bottom, mentioned a lot more about land trusts. And land trusts are definitely one of the tools and groups of people that we would be affiliated with in order to do this. But I don't know that whether or not it's something that needs to go into a mission statement, that says that that is our mechanism by which to do this necessarily.
Well,
We could add it as, what, we could add,
Like, some of the properties may not get eased and
Right.
don't need any land trust affiliation or involvement in it.
I'm just going back to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan, and lake associations and land trusts are repeated.
But
yeah.
would that, this is a question, not a statement, would that be more toward us if we were a regulatory style board, committee, compared to an advisory one?
That's right from the comprehensive plan.
Can we write as, by working with town department, boards and committee as outlined in the conservation plan?
Well, that's why the first statement of mine had to do with the comp plan, is kind of the overarching.
But, you know, we gotta keep in mind that the mission statement itself, like Kelly said, should be brief.
Right.
And then, once we are able to put some of this information out there to the public, then we can provide more extensive information like
On the website?
some of these other.
Right, well, and toward that point, the concept is that the mission statement is more the what, not
What we
the
do,
how.
not how, right?
The how part is for us to decide along the way. So my question to you, I guess to your point, would be, the land trust would definitely be a mechanism of the how in a lot of circumstances, but not necessarily part of our mission statement in a boiled down version of the what.
Okay, let me just,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
See, because all three of these, like the first one that I put out just for a starting point, Steve's and Freiberg's, they all kind of have like the same overlying themes. It's just a matter of how much detail and how wordy you want to get with it.
Like, I think mine is pretty concise in the terminology of it without getting us into the weeds too far. But yet, that may or may not mean anything to someone that reads it looking to join our committee if those terms aren't overly familiar to them. I'm kind of asking that as a question. Not trying to. It seems pretty concise, whereas the one from Freiberg, you know, creating opportunities for all citizens to learn and enjoy natural resources is kind of a flowery way of putting it, and it's true. But I don't know that that part of it is overly necessarily in the boiled down part. So when you jump to the, and then maintain, as a source of rural economic opportunity, let's say. I mean, we're all headed in the same direction, so there's really not much differences in any of these. It's just the words that we're picking to say it, that's
But
all.
like in yours, we could probably get rid of town-owned conservation lands, and we don't have to do this such.
Correct. I didn't necessarily mean to say that and I didn't overly want to put down the property names, because
Yeah.
what if a property changes in its management, committee structure, or like, for example, Mary Grant. I mean, we're kind of secondary on Mary Grant, are we not? Since there's already a Mary Grant committee. Or what if a new property that came up that was purchased turns out not to be necessarily feasible as a workable town forest, but isn't necessarily like a hiking trail style committee. We don't know what that new property might look like. So I guess, yeah, the concept behind me putting in Goat Hill and Mary Grant and town forest parcels was essentially only because those were mentioned specifically in the section up above it. So I'm perfectly happy with not mentioning that, but we do want to look at that and say, if someone looks at this and says, well, where are you doing this? Do we want to have some level of,
But we can list that on, under, like, on the website, right?
yes, for sure.
Right.
Properties under our
Our
purview are this.
That
or
can be
something
part
like
of,
that.
you know, part of
That's
our
right.
goals and our others. The mission statement really doesn't have to cover that.
Correct.
We can
Yeah,
put
so
that underneath.
I didn't mean to put that in there,
Yeah.
other than to carry it over from the one above it, in order to give somebody that might look at it and say, well, which properties are we actually talking about? Because it's not necessarily just town forest parcels. It can be more because, for example, it talked about recreation and educational and responsible stewardship also in the one above too. There was the first one. So for example, the educational, recreational, and responsible stewardship of applicable town-owned properties is kind of a pretty good statement and a meaty statement to put in there. Without being specific of what properties those might be.
Yeah,
See, now on the, the town of Freiburg also has a Facebook page. I didn't realize that, but they do. And their mission statement on their Facebook page is one sentence. And it is, the mission of the Freiburg Conservation Committee is to restore and protect, improve public access to Freiburg's publicly owned spaces by working with town departments, boards and committees, and by enlisting volunteers. So that's just it, like a really brief, and then of course it goes,
I enjoyed the brevity of it, I just don't like the access part of it.
Yeah.
Concept. I mean, I agree with the idea that it should be as short as you can feasibly make it, but just because they happen to list access as being something
Yeah.
that
Right.
they might have, I definitely think should
I think
not
we're
be
all
in
set
there.
for
Yeah.
that first sentence. As we changed it. My only addition to that is the concept of local land trust.
Right,
And if that's, we can add that down below as a goal, then that's fine.
right. I think I would be more for that, only as to not imply that it is some sort of prerequisite that we are
Again,
a clearinghouse for land trust information necessarily.
I'm just looking at this.
he's going through the comprehensive plan.
Land conservation plan.
Yep.
And it stressed working with Lake Association, local land trusts,
Right.
adjoining municipalities, you know, so,
The way we could put that, once we get our mission statement figured out, under our goals, we could say, our mission statement.
Cooperative working with, or something.
Cooperative with, working with land trusts and, yeah,
and to that effect, I would put, for the first sentence, put a period after committees and leave out by enlisting volunteers.
yeah.
Because again, that's part of the how part that I don't think is required, yeah,
Yeah, that's a how.
yeah.
And then the next sentence, the committee hopes to encourage, instead of hopes.
No, you just put encourages or something,
The committee encourages,
works to, or
right.
strives to, or encourages.
it's just the committee encourages these same goals in private property would work fine.
yep.
Say that again.
These, the
Drops hopes
committee
entirely.
encourages these same goals in private property would work just fine.
These, committee works advisory board, something. They work, the committee,
Encourages.
See, I would strike that out of your mission statement.
The work to create opportunities for all citizens?
No,
No.
I would strike the committee serves in an advisory capacity to the Board of Selectmen, because that's more of
Because we have it up there anyway.
an operational thing than it is
By working with town
Goal.
departments, boards, and committees.
Yeah, again, we're advising the town, not
Yeah.
necessarily just the committee or the
Right, so
selectmen.
that could go
yeah.
away.
You want to add Board of Selectmen?
No, take it
Because it's
out.
under the board. It's already up there on the thing, because we're working with boards, working with town departments, board, and committees.
And then the next sentence, the committee works to create.
The committee work, they work to create opportunities for citizens to learn and enjoy natural resources. That's also a how. That can be underneath the how, by working to create opportunities for all citizens to learn and enjoy. That could be under the how thing. Does that make sense?
See,
I think it's gonna be in there.
You think so?
getting back to, let's
So
see,
can we just get that by Xing out on the one that I put in there, the words such as Goat Hill, Mary Grant Preserve, and Town Forest Properties?
I'm sorry, say that again,
It's
Steve?
almost as though we're working back toward what I
Yeah,
had, correct me if
yeah.
I'm wrong. If we took the one that I had and it said, to work within the Acton Comprehensive Plan in order to, well, I had help promote goals of conservation of natural resources, but if you went to the second sentence and said, the committee serves in an advisory role to help the town with management of town-owned conservation lands, period, and got rid of the such as Goat Hill, Mary Grant Preserve, and Town Forest Properties, and to work as a mechanism for outreach toward responsible stewardship or acquisition, whatever other stuff you put there. It seems a little more concise, I guess is the word I'm looking for. The big bullet points that I was shooting for and what I put, for right or for wrong, is it's within the comprehensive plan, it's advisory to the town in whatever form the town
Chooses that to be.
requests it, and that it also is working with the private sector of the town for similar goals on private-owned lands.
Right, but if you take the first sentence of Steve's draft, pretty much everything else that we would do would be under the umbrella of that one sentence.
Of the first paragraph, Andy?
Yes. The
publicly owned spaces statement, we're
To
jumping
work-
back and forth,
To work within the Town of Acton's comprehensive plan in order to help promote the goals of conservation of natural resources and open space in our town.
okay? So
Boom.
you're okay?
That's
you're
our
thinking
mission
that's it?
statement.
That's our mission statement, right there.
That's our mission statement.
Okay,
Okay? Then, once we have that solidified and agreed upon, then Jen put some information out that the town's website was gonna be available after, I don't know, did you guys catch the date? At the end of June.
End of June, right.
for amendment, you mean, the website?
Yes,
website.
there'll be space on the website for us to
Have a page.
start a page.
It'd be nice to have a little bullet under the boards that includes us.
Right.
Yeah.
So it will be like every other town where you go on to the town of Alfred, Freiburg, Limerick, any of these, and you go on and you see their Conservation or Forestry Committee, you click on it, boom, then it comes to our page, and right at the top is that one sentence, that's our mission statement.
And then our how would be everything
Okay,
else.
if that's not too general for you, then by all means, that's fine.
I think it's good,
To work within the
because
town of- yep.
what we're going to do is we're gonna build off that
To let them know the how.
with other information, just like these other, committees and commissions do. Just like when we started the whole conversation of this, I guess now like looking back, even mine was way too wordy, because it was like a complete paragraph. Just the first sentence in that would have been closer to what we needed than the complete paragraph, because all the stuff contained in the paragraph
Is the how part.
is the how and the
Right.
more meat of what the committee is actually going to be doing.
So let me just read this again. The mission of the Acton Conservation and Forestry Committee is to work within the Town of Acton Comprehensive Plan in order to help promote goals of conservation of natural resources and open spaces in our town, period.
Again, I will never be complaining of something being too short, because I would prefer to have it be open to discretion of the hows and what we do later. The only question that I would have would be, toward Andy's point from before, is, you know, that person that wants to know what that means or what we are doing or aren't doing. And yes, if we can click down on that and have that be information under it, then that's cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of like on us, once we get the ball rolling with putting some of this information out there, it's getting the information out there to hopefully encourage participation.
Okay, well, I am
think that's a
perfectly
great-
okay with that. I would much rather be concise and leave it open to our interpretation at a later date than to hamstring us with worrying about exactly what our land trust affiliations are or our specific job descriptions are for which specific properties. All of that is for us to determine and advise on
Right.
at a later date.
Right.
And then underneath the mission statement, it can say to include and then land trust.
And again, that's where the terms come in, like
Yeah.
advise or land trust affiliates or private owned.
Because that's all the
something.
how.
Right.
How are we gonna get to our
Right.
mission statement? And that does not have to be in the mission statement.
Yeah, that, so that's, I'm perfectly okay with that. I just didn't know if that would be not wordy enough toward Andy's goal of making sure what he had always said is somebody gonna be able to read this and know why they're coming on to our committee?
And I mean,
Well, I agree
hopefully,
with you entirely. I just don't, I didn't want to go too far in the other direction of having
Yeah.
it be not wordy enough as to tell people what Andy was trying to tell them before.
Right, let's see, Alfred, what they do is they have a mission statement, and then they have what they call the duties of the commission.
Right.
We would have like the duties of the Conservation Forestry Committee, and then we would get into some of this other stuff that we've been discussing, like the,
Okay, I'm perfectly happy with it.
Makes
being
sense?
the Shorter version.
what does everybody feel?
Short.
Short and sweet?
Still,
So after Mike just wrote down like 5 pages worth of stuff.
I know,
we're
it's
gonna
just
end up with
like, you
one.
guys are killing me.
because the other thing that we could do, if it will help, convince
There's no
Mike,
going back now, Andy.
is, once we have like a page, like so many of these towns have, we're referencing the comprehensive plan. There's, what would be a good way to reference the comprehensive plan would be to have the items in the comprehensive plan actually on our,
yeah,
yes, like
On the
each,
webpage.
each item in the comprehensive plan that cites the responsibilities of this committee could be on there, could be publicized.
I think some of these may have already happened, and some of them, I'm sure, were looked at and like,
I've looked at them several times, and some of them are just unobtainable. Some of them, like you said, have been done.
yeah. But I keep going back to the,
The land trust.
I lost it. Maintain the resource as a source of rural economic opportunity. If we took, looking on your second paragraph, the last line, responsible stewardship, the mission statement of the Acton Conservation and Forestry Committee is to work within the town of Acton a comprehensive plan in order to promote goals of conservation and responsible stewardship of natural resources and open space in our town.
That sounds good to
So
me.
you're moving that phrase up into
Just
the
the
first
responsible
sentence.
stewardship.
Right.
Yep.
That's good.
And that implies that you can.
Activity is all right. It's not a lock it up and throw away the key scenario, yeah. Yes,
That
I
works
like
for me, yep.
So the responsible stewardship phrase kind of encompasses what you were talking about.
Right.
And brings it into the shortened version of the mission statement. Okay, cool.
Read it one last time.
Okay, here we go.
I was actually reading something else, and I don't multitask well.
Right here.
I got you. Go ahead.
The mission of the Acton Conservation and Forestry Committee is to work within the Town of Acton comprehensive plan in order to promote goals of conservation and responsible stewardship of natural resources and open space in our town.
Perfect.
Hallelujah.
Period.
I make a motion to,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Is that
I'm good with it.
good?
I think it's great.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept that?
I have a motion to accept that as amended.
I will second it.
All in favor?
Hang on.
He's still right.
He's still writing.
Okay. And the vote is
A.
5-0. Awesome.
Nice work.
Amen.
Good discussion.
Mission statement preparation is full.
Before we leave old business, do you need me to try to get, I mean, is it better that, are we sitting around and waiting? Do you want to make contact? Do I need to make contact on the forester job description that we did move upstream, so to speak?
I had dropped that off a while back, and both Dave and Jen are included in the email, so
Okay.
they know that it was on our agenda tonight, so certainly if you want to talk to
So
them.
if I just fired away an email and said, hey, where are we on feedback on our forester job description toward committee, whatever. Okay, so I'll fire off an email, yep. I just don't want it to die on the vine if that's something that we're,
No,
you
I'm
know.
sure that they're working on it. I know that budget season is overwhelming at the moment.
Okay. Okay.
Good?
Onward.
Onward. I put on a new business, Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Consultation, Shapley. I received an email back in the fall. The Shapley Conservation Committee had, it was either a biologist or a representative from the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife come and look at mapping of their town-owned parcels, and they use it to plug in, beginning with habitat data. And I've tried to do some research on it to see what it entails and what it encompasses, to see if we could benefit from that. But before I put any feelers out to the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, I wanted to get some feedback from the committee as a whole to see if it's something something we're interested in.
Well, the easiest, well, I'll jump in on that one, Andy. The plan that was written on the town farm lot road, included what they call an MNAP, Main Natural Areas MNAP program, feedback from the shape file, which was where all the property lines are on the property, and that got sent into the state. The state then cross-referenced it with the database that is essentially what this DIF and W consultation is. So that property essentially has already gotten a lot of the information that they would come forward with on it in the plan. So that one had that happen. Now, the plan that was written for the Hebo-Hibo lot was not of the level at which I requested an MNAP feedback on, but I can do that as well now that we have better mapping and computer requested information from the state. So, for example, if we had for example, the piece on the town farm road, that property had the wetlands on the back of it that had a portion of what looked to be remnants, if not current heron rookery portions on it, on parts of the wetlands. And, you know, lots of beaver activity and all that fun stuff. So for example, when you submit to the state, on the state website for an MNAP, M-N-A-P request, they come back with anything that had been endangered species, they come back with critical habitats, they come back with any of these things that they already have on their books. So the first step of what this new business item would be requesting that information if you don't have it already. And then if you had any question, of course, of, well, how does one promote a blah, 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 or something, then you could certainly go back to a wildlife biologist and say, what are the recommendations on how to work around a heron rookery? I'm just using this as an example. Then that would be the legs portion, or the moving forward portion of what the data has provided. So the first step of what they're referring to within your statement of the Fish and Wildlife consultation is get the habitat mapped within the state, of the state's habitats and endangered species and this and that, and see what they come back with. So so like I said, the town farm lots already had that done on it, and that was part of the forestry plan that was submitted.
Yeah.
It was not done on the Hebo-Hibo lot, and now that I have that information in GPS form, I can put that together and request the same thing for that lot, as that plan was a lot older with less computer, you know, generated feedback from the state. That would have been more of a hands-on request at the time that I wrote that plan. So I can do the same thing for that lot as we have done for the town farm lot.
Is there a benefit to these presentations to the general public, like people that have land and tree growth, or?
What part of that are you referring to? I guess what I'm saying is if the question is do we have specific special habitats or species on the lot? That's what the Fisheries and Wildlife consultation is for. First and foremost is the rare things. But after that, you have, if you were to say, hey, I just have this woodlot in Maine, what do I do to promote X, Y, and Z? Then A, you have to first determine what X, Y, and Z is, and then you have to go back to the state and say, how do I grow, I'm making up stuff, deer or partridge or beavers or whatever it happens to be. So the first step of that certainly is to say, do we have anything of note out there that is rare and endangered or listed currently on rare habitats? So I would definitely get that information first before you start talking about, you know, it's all public information. You know, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily open up to the town and say, hey, does everyone in the town want us to conserve beavers or whatever? Until you get all this information. You know what
I
I'm
have
saying,
one.
though? I don't mean to be
Hard to get rid
belittle.
of.
I'm not trying to belittle the concept.
No.
But the idea is you need to get the information first, is to see what is important on the property. And then that's where the committee decisions start coming in as to what the town is valuing on that acre, before we then go back and say our recommendations are to manage for X, Y, and Z. So the public part I don't think will have come yet. But A, it's done on the town farm lot, and B, I would then request it on the Hebo-Hibo lot.
Are there presentations, do you think it's anything of value for public education?
Not yet, is what I'm getting at. If the town wants to, again, we are trying to be a guiding force in this. And if you throw out there, and this is just speaking from experience, every landowner wants to grow every species of tree and every species of wildlife on every acre of property that exists. You will completely paralysis by analysis if you go that route first.
Maybe it's one of those things, once we get space on the website, you can say, hey, if you want to know.
What we have on, well, again, the both plan, well, it certainly, I don't know about, I have given the second plan certainly, and I believe the first one, to Jen in the, electronic form even.
Yeah,
But for example,
Joe Blow owns, you just bought a new farm with 30 acres of woodland. What's on there? Here on our little tab, there's a place where you can go.
oh, you mean like a link of some sort? Oh, so, okay, so you're saying
Go to the
like,
wildland fisheries.
right, I see.
You want to know.
You could,
what
yeah.
endangered
Yeah.
species might exist.
Right. So use our website as a tool or a conduit
Promote,
to help bring about.
to give them to
I see.
the right information, right?
Right.
I was also thinking like with the Mary Grant, if we have that listed as one of our purveyors, that can also have a link to the Mary Grant, to kind of,
Right,
so, you know,
So, and that's promoting goals of conservation. and-
Right.
and
Yep.
responsible stewardship.
right, yep.
That's-
yeah.
I was going in a little different direction with that than I think you were, so yep, gotcha.
Does that make sense, Andy?
Yeah, yeah. No, I knew that Shapley had had them come do a visit and a presentation, and I had no idea what,
Right, but the first thing that they're going to do before they ever show up on site is they are going to show up, if they do first, before anything, is to look up the MNAP report.
Right.
That they would then bring to you, presuming that you did not have one.
yeah, I'm on the, website right now, and you can actually go in town by town and access that information.
Yeah.
Right. What ends up happening, for example, is when I put that in as a forester with geo-referenced GPS information, I literally, because you can't necessarily just believe that the tax map has every property line exactly where it goes. You know what I'm saying? I'm not building me up in any manner of speaking. But when I request it, I send a shape file in to the town, which is a shape of presumably, let's just say a square, with the four corners here, 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 and here that I took on site from GPS. And it will then say, anything that is within a mile of this property is what pops up on the MNAP review of that property. Because of course, if it's a Blandings turtle, then they might travel 500 yards. If it's a whatever, then they might travel 5 miles.
Right.
So they do open it up wider, and anything that, depending upon the habitat requirements or travel patterns, let's say, are listed of possible things that would be of concern or desire to manage for on the lot, wildlife-wise. But that's why the GPS parts are important, because they don't want you to take a tax map necessarily and send it to them with a circle on the property to find out that the corner is actually 400 feet away from where you're saying that it is, and next thing you know, somebody says you've got a bald eagle nest on the end of the property, and it turns out it's on your neighbor's, and next thing you know, a whole world of stuff happens. So it's important to know exactly where the property lines are, and that's where the GPS information comes in.
All right?
So let me back that up a half a step and say, would you like me to then try to put in for the request on the town, the Hebo-Hibo lot as well?
Yes.
I would presume?
Yes,
Yes.
I concur.
So we've already got one, but the Hebo-Hibo lot.
Yeah.
And again, so to your point, for record keeping, Hebo-Hibo MNAP report request. Maine Natural Areas Program.
We good? Mm-hmm. All right. The next item was posting committee information on town website. You guys probably saw in the email chain that Jennifer replied that the town website will be up and running by June 1st. So that will be our tentative date of availability to create our page.
Should we get a template together as a group between now and then of what we want to place on that page? That way it would be simple data input?
So we can't put anything in until June 1st,
Correct.
Correct.
or she's requesting it so it can be implemented for June 1st?
It says that they're rebuilding the new website now, hope to be up by June 1st, and then they will offer each board/committee a page if they like.
And then they will offer
And
the
then.
page. Okay, so that, the operable phrase is that they're not requesting that information of us today in order to be up and active
Right,
by June.
right.
So what I would do, just to make sure that we don't have all of this wonderful, hey, where did the Conservation and Forestry Committee go? Where do we meet? When do we meet? Do we actually have a place at the table, so to speak? I would go back and tell her, we plan on submitting information to be amended into the website.
Right. Oh,
Put it in there in some draft form that we can then, like, let her know that we're going to be putting information in on
That
this.
we want a page.
Right.
So Andy, you're gonna do that, right?
yeah, I mean, she's included in, I mean, she knows that it's on our agenda and
But I'm just
she's
saying,
in the loop, she knows.
if we're fighting for a place and a time to meet without overlapping some other committee, then that means we're certainly way down on the ladder.
Important list, yeah.
So that being the case, I think we need to at least let her know that we plan on inputting something at the proper time, build it in as such.
And we actually will have, between now and June 1st, we'll meet in May. So we could start pulling together ideas at our May meeting, perhaps.
Can I make a suggestion that that be part of our, I hate to say homework, but, work that we can do, and I'll come back with some sort of template idea?
So do we want to have the, so is the mission statement that we just created in draft form?
That's gonna be
it.
the mission.
But I'm moving up to our advisory comment. Do we have to clear that with the selectmen beforehand, before they will see fit to put that on the website?
I don't think Dave
No,
said, he said do it.
Well, I'm just saying, that's fine.
I can certainly ask some questions as far as there's gotta be a policy in place, the town's gotta have a policy in place for the website. So I can just ask for a copy of the policy and ask how that process works.
Okay, well, I'm saying
It's
that
new
only
to all of
because
us.
if the problem, I don't expect it to be the same, however, but if the idea behind what does a forester's job description look like had to be kicked upstairs for their approval, then that does beget the question of, is our mission statement going to have to be approved as well?
I can-
And if that's the case, then does that mean we need to send it to them here in the next couple of weeks to be available for review at our next meeting?
I mean, we should send it to her anyway, but I don't think it's going to, I mean.
I don't think it's gonna make waves or anything, I'm just
No.
saying, I don't want Jen,
Innocuous.
I agree with you, I'm just saying I know that the procedure is the thing for these guys, and I don't want it to be that we didn't say something 10 days ahead, and next thing you know, we can't do something, so.
Why don't we do this? I'll forward our mission statement to them, and I'll ask a few questions about the website and what it's gonna entail as far as our access to it.
Right. There we go.
And I'll ask them if there's a policy in place and how that works. So I'm sure that it's an easy
Sure, the answer
explanation.
is going to be there isn't one, however, but that's fine, that's the
No, I mean,
right, that's the right step.
There's gotta be something in place because the other boards and committees are utilizing the current site, so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll put that on as an agenda item for May's meeting.
And Andy, I'd like to request that you number items on the agenda.
I will.
It makes it easier for me to.
Okay. Sorry, I've got to write this down so that I
No.
have got it covered.
By all means.
All right, so we are down to other items of discussion for this evening, if there are any.
I just want to mention the fact that the Mary Grant Committee is having their annual cleanup day coming up. We pushed it back to May. It's either the first weekend or the second weekend of May, just trying to avoid Mother's Day. But just so you know, it's going to be kind of all hands on deck if people want to help come clean. We're going to be cleaning the trails and getting it ready for summer. It's either the first or second weekend in May. I will let everybody know. I will send an email out, but I just want to, if anybody is willing to join and come help us, we can use all the help we can get. Last time I walked the trail, there was a lot of fallen stuff.
A lot of wind this,
Yeah.
A lot of spring cleanup this year.
wind's this big.
So on other items, this isn't necessarily a discussion thing, but I mentioned at the last meeting as well, tagging our comment behind the window of non-bug opportunity that we have in front of us. I will be looking to have a site walk on the town farm lot here somewhere within this calendar month. So,
A monitoring lot.
a monitoring walk. So that, again, so this begets the concept of what we're doing. This is not, this is the town the way we put it at the last meeting was, this is part of the town forester's job description to make monitoring walks. Public is invited. Make contact with me to attend.
Have a date.
Is that the best? Shh, don't go there, Mark.
No.
Is that the best way to put that?
Yep.
Okay.
Just the town forest or both?
The one that I will do here, it would only be the two town forest properties,
So both,
but I only am thinking the first one.
okay.
I don't necessarily want to stack them up and say that we've got, for example, the Hebo-Hibo property has better road access later in the year when Hebo-Hibo Road has dried out. Whereas the, town farm lot is really best to just walk right in from Sanborn Road. So I would prefer to do town farm lot first.
Just so I could,
Yep. So a similar request and comment will be made later in the, summer for better access to the Hebo-Hibo lot for another monitoring walk there.
Anything else?
Good.
Entertain a motion for adjournment.
so move.